everyone, it's me again. I'm Lena and I'm from the Healthcare Landscape group. In this video, I'll be talking about my main video, which is about muscle contraction and how do muscles move. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about the origin, the insertion, how do muscles contract. So basically, I think 5 main parts. So muscle attachment sites, we're going to talk about muscle contraction characteristics of muscles, how do muscles move, and how do bones work with the muscular system. Along the way, I'll be also talking about the types of contractions and the types of muscle fibers, as well as ending the video with a fun fact. So let's get started on our first part, which is muscle attachment sites. Now, if you have looked at my second DE last week or my main video, I did mention about the origin and the insertion. So what exactly is the origin and the insertion? Well, the origin is the attachment site that remains stationary during contraction. So it is attached to the immovable bone. It is proximally attached, and it is immovable, so it is the fixed anchor at that point. And the insertion moves during contraction, so that is the part of the muscle that moves during contraction. It is attached to the maneuverable or movable bone, and it is a distal attachment. So let me give you an example, a picture of that. Okay, so this is the origin and the insertion. This is a picture of the origin and the insertion. As you can see, the origin is the fixed anchor, and it is proximally attached, which means that it's closer to the attachment, which means that it's closer to the main body, the body here, than the insertion, which is distally attached, and it is the mobile part. So this is the fixed anchor, and this is the maneuverable. And think about it. This part does not have a very much movement, but this one has a wide range of motion, if you think about it. So that is the origin and the insertion. That is all for that part on the muscle attachment sites. So 2 attachment sites, origin and insertion. As you can see on this map, on this model here, you can also see that they are attached to the bone. They are muscles. They are part of the muscle. So yeah, that is the muscle attachment site. Next is how do muscles contract, or muscle contraction. So for this part, I'm going to talk about the 5 main steps in which muscle contract. So the first stage is brain signals. So the brain will send electrical signals through the nervous system, through motor neurons, to specific muscles involved in that specific motion. So for example, I want to move my arm, so my brain will send signals to my arm and outstretch it, grab maybe a comb or maybe a marker, for example, and then back. So that is firstly, that brain signals. Next is the chemical release. The signal triggers the release of a chemical at the neuromuscular junction. So I think that the name of that chemical is acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction. And after that, there's the actin and myosin interaction. And if you recall, the actin and myosin are filaments that are involved in the making of the muscles. So the muscles are made up of actin and myosin filaments. So that chemical causes the calcium to rush into the muscle cell, initiating a chain of events where the actin and myosin protein filaments within the muscle slide past each other. So that is the actin and myosin interaction. For the 4th stage is the contraction. This is the main stage. This sliding of the actin and myosin against each other will cause the muscle fiber to shorten in a process called contraction, which pulls the attached tendon. And the tendon, if you recall, is attached. It attaches the bone to the muscle. So when you pull that tendon, you also pull the bone, and that facilitates movement. So as you can see, there's the muscle attached. If you can see here, the muscle is attached to the bone. There's the tendon here, and when you pull that muscle, shorten that muscle. Like here, when the muscle is contracting, it shortens, and then it pulls the bone, this maneuverable bone, so that movement of contracting. So that is basically muscle contraction. Next is the characteristics of muscles. Now, in the last video, I did mention about the four main characteristics of muscles: elasticity, extensibility, excitability, and contractility. And I'm going to talk about how this will relate to the muscle contraction and this video in the next part. But yeah, that is basically the characteristics of muscles. Now, the elasticity. Elasticity is the ability to return to resting position or original length after being stretched or contracted, extended out, the ability to return to resting position. And next is excitability, which is the ability to respond to stimulation, like it is excited, it is stimulated. That is excitability. Extensibility, this is the ability to stretch out, extend, or lengthen beyond the resting or original length. So that is the opposite of elasticity. And lastly is contractility, which is the ability to shorten when the muscle receives sufficient stimulation. So that is contractility. Those are the four main characteristics of muscles. And yeah, I want to show you a picture of how that relates. Okay, so let's take this picture again. Origins and insertion. Let's say that we had that process of contracting over there, and then this muscle is stimulated. So when it is in its resting position, it will be outstretched like this, not like this. Will be outstretched and straight. So it has not been pulled up like this yet. So when there's the contraction, when the contraction actually occurs, the sliding causes the muscle fiber to shorten, and when you move your arm upwards, then that will shorten this muscle right here. I think this is the biceps, and this is contraction, and this pulls the attached tendon here, which pulls the bone, the maneuverable bone here. And that is the origin, and the excitability. So it's the ability to respond to stimulation. Stimulation is the brain signal over there, the first part. There's the elasticity, which means that it will be outstretched like this, not up like this. So it will be outstretched, and yeah, that is when it is elasticity. The elasticity is. And there's also extensibility, which is the ability to stretch, lengthen beyond resting or original length. So opposite of elasticity. And there's also contractility, the ability to shorten when the muscle receives sufficient stimulation. So those are the characteristics of muscle fibers. Next is, how do muscles move? So this is the main part. We're going to actually talk about how do muscles move, work with bones, and things like that. So firstly, the brain signal, just like in the contracting. So for the brain signal, the brain will send electric signals to the specific muscles involved in that motion. We'll take that classic example of my outstretched arm again. My brain will send signals to my arm so that I can move it. So it is excited, it is stimulated. Yeah, that is the brain signal. Next is the muscle contraction. So the muscle contraction is when the nerve signal causes the muscle to contract or tighten. So yeah, that is tighten. I written it heighten, but I think it is tighten. During contraction, the muscle becomes shorter and thicker. So during contraction, this part will become thicker, as you can see in this illustration, will become thicker, and also it will become shorter. So that is when the muscle contraction. Next is the tendon and bone movement. When the muscle pulls on that tendon, the tendon will pull on the bone, and then it will help you to contract. Joint movement. The movement of the bone occurs at the joint, and the muscle goes over the joint, because without that muscle, then the joint won't work. So yeah, that is the joint movement. Lastly is the muscle relaxation. After contracting, after all that contracting and doing its work, the muscle will return to its resting position, will relax, return to its normal or original length and position, and that is the elasticity characteristic. So the muscle relaxation is when elasticity comes in. So that is how do muscles move. Next is how do bones work with the muscular system. Now the bones, I'm going to talk about the functions of those two and how do they work with each other. So the bones provide the body with the rigid framework, a framework for support. Attachment, it works as an attachment site for muscles, and it is important in facilitating movement. So if you recall, there's the muscle here, there's the tendon there, and then there's the bone. So when the muscle pulls on the tendon, the tendon will pull on the bone, and that is when it has that movement there. Extension, flexion, and extension, that movement that I'm doing there. And the muscle attached to bones and pull on the bone to create movement. They also help to keep the bones in place and contribute to the stabilization of joints. Now take this joint for example at the shoulder joint. And this is the most freely movable of the synovial joints, but it's also the least stable. So in turn, we have muscles to stabilize this joint so that it won't pop out, or as we call it shoulder dislocation easily. So it won't be dislocated easily because there's that muscle that provides as an extra backup for that joint. And yeah, that is how do bones work with the muscular system. Next, I want to talk about the 3 types of contraction. And I think that I have a picture of that. Yes, I do. Here. Yeah. So the types of muscle contraction. There's the isometric contraction, there's the concentric contraction, and there's the eccentric contraction. So firstly, shortening the muscle fibers and lengthen them. For example, picking up a book, and that is called concentric contraction. So when the muscle fibers shorten, and vice versa, the reverse movement, put the book down, is the muscle fibers lengthen. So these are 2 complementary movements. For the isometric contraction is when the muscle fibers do not change in length. So this movement shortens, this one lengthens, and this one has no movement. And that is when the muscle fibers don't change in length and they keep the muscles rigid, so locked in place. So that will be the muscles associated with keeping your posture, because it keeps your posture all day. And then there's also holding that mug, holding a marker so that it won't drop, and that is also an example of stabilizing force, that stabilizing force of isometric contraction. So those are the 3 main types of muscle contraction. Next is the 2 types of muscle fiber. There's the slow twitch and the fast twitch. What is the slow twitch? Well, the slow twitch, as its name suggests, are endurance cells. So they are slow to react. They don't react instantly, but they endure for a long time. Let's say the muscles that on our back that help keep our posture all day long. They don't get tired very easily like the fast twitch, which is the exact opposite of the slow twitch. They react instantly, but they also tire very quickly. They tire up quickly. So let's say the ones on your limbs, like on your hands or on your legs. When you run, they get tired up very easily. So that is an example of a fast twitch muscle fibers. So yeah. Speaking of muscle fibers, I also have one more illustration of the structure of the skeletal muscle. As you can see from here, this is the bone, this is the tendon which attached the muscle to the bone. And how is this related to my video? Well, I talked about how the muscle pulls on the tendon and pulls on the bone, and I just want to show you an illustration of that to help you easily picture what I'm talking about. The remaining illustrations is just what I talked about, the characteristics of the muscles. I talked about irritability, which is actually another, which actually means the exact same as the excitability. There's also contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Next is this. Lastly, I have this illustration of the relaxed of when they are contracting. There's the contracting biceps. When you have that outstretched arm, then the triceps will contract, and then the biceps will relax. So as you can see, this one is quite shorter than the biceps. But when you flex your muscle, then there will be the relaxed triceps, and then there's the contracting biceps. So the biceps will shorten, and this one will lengthen, or it will be longer than the biceps. So that is an example of contracting of the biceps and triceps. That is a classic example of that. And lastly, to end this video, I want to talk about a fun fact. So that fun fact is your muscles produce most of the heat in your body. In fact, they are responsible for 85% of your body's total heat production. This is why you shiver when you're cold. Your muscles are rapidly contracting and relaxing to help you shiver and create heat. So that is the reason why you shiver when you are cold. And that is my fun fact for today. I hope that you learned something new from this video, or just review some of the things that you have learned. Thank you for listening to my video, and I'm looking forward to see you soon. Goodbye.